I usually try to limit the expectations I have before entering a show. Admittedly, when it involves PA Works or KyoAn, I easily get hyped. The first episode of Tokyo Ghoul filled me with enthusiasm, only later disappoint and lead me to feeling the show could have done so much more. So, this is my review/rant on Tokyo Ghoul. Strangely, this isn't going to be a full review or an anime gone wrong. It's kind of a mixture of the two together. Anyways, let's get started. There is a subspecies of humans known as ghouls, which is incapable of eating human food and must instead eat humans to get substance. In exchange, they get superhuman physical abilities and lots of cool powers. Kian Kineki is a normal college student and is lured into a trap by a ghoul named Rize and is almost eaten, but is saved at the last second by a timely accident. He wakes up later to find his damaged internal organs were replaced by the ghoul of Rize. So he begins his new life as a half-human, half-ghoul outcast. Taking the details out and just looking at the broad picture, Tokyo Ghoul is unique for its own premise. It's the newest, hyper-edgy, violent show on the market, and from the aspect it has, delivers most of it just because of its popularity. I give it praise, and in no means do I not think it wasn't enjoyable to watch. It certainly was. But where my subjective enjoyment ends, there comes my objective look on how the anime performs. And there were little bits here and there of factors that did continue to float in my mind over the course of the entire season. While the premise seemed pretty psychological, exploring racial diversity and internal mental challenges, Tokyo Ghoul chose not to. The show took a violent approach with almost no backdrop story, apart from the alternative motives that were left in the dark for most of the time. It was the humans against ghouls and vice versa, showing it in the most brutal way, but without any emotional attachment. I remember Attack on Titan doing the same thing, usage of cliffhangers, so much so that it ruined the viewing experience. But Attack on Titan managed to build up the right momentum to pull the viewer for another ultraline pumping episode. Tokyo Ghoul just fails in that respect. Tokyo Ghoul created phony tension. The moment following up to the build-up weren't worth the wait and left the viewer unfulfilled. This formula was repeated every single episode and became tedious. As far as storytelling goes, the pacing is extremely fast, as the anime attempts to cover over 100 manga chapters and only a dozen episodes. Nothing lasts long enough for you to even care about. Even in terms of aesthetics, there's very little to hook you, besides a few cinematics here and there, and those are even ruined because of the ridiculous amount of censorship. Tokyo Ghoul was one of the most highly expected series of the season, but it did fall short. Sometimes it felt as if the series had a hard time choosing between being dark, action series, or a psychological thriller with gore, so it never manages to fully satisfy either position. Kaneki's growth over the course of the series is a true struggle. It does come to grips with his new life while he's unable to leave behind his old one. The problem is, this growth doesn't really get any real jolt until the last few episodes. Characters are what make or break the show for me. I can find a show redeemable if it even has just a single character I can really identify with or appreciate. That's Tokyo Ghoul's biggest weakness. None of the storylines or characters are presented properly. All of them shift one way or the other. For example, I was rooting so hard for one of the ghoul hunters who seemed to be clearly in the gray area, driven by the sense of justice when hunting these man-eating ghouls. But no, we never get to see the development because it's Kaneki's viewpoint. Seriously, this show should have been marketed as a drama, personal, emotional journey of a crybaby with a sadistic, explosive violence thrown in for shock value. I haven't been more disappointed on any anime aired this year thanks to its complete failure at telling its own story. None of the characters are ever fleshed out despite the subtle hints of their respective histories that are made from them who they are today. This is the one thing that the manga has way over the anime. Each side character do have their own stories and they do get developed in that. But in the anime, they don't show that whatsoever, which also does either affect or involve Kaneki. Tokyo Ghoul fails to bring out the sense of true struggle for survival and the fear of death that made Attack on Titan so popular. When you have a series based on gore, one would expect to find a cast that is not safe from death. The only characters that are actually threatened are civilian characters or the main antagonist, which takes away the entire aspect of the dark atmosphere that's supposed to make Tokyo Ghoul a thriller. The fights are also pretty exciting if you can see them uncensored. Let me elaborate on censorship. This anime's particular flavor involves covering 3/4 of the screen in black every time anything slightly violent happened. Half the time I had to guess exactly what was happening during the fight, and the other half I had literally had to go to read the manga to understand. If a directional team is going to anime a fight, then let us as the viewer watch that. Maybe an uncensored Blu-ray may happen, maybe. Well, probably eventually. I'm not gonna waste my money though on something so shamelessly a manipulative ploy like that just so they can make a profit off of my seek for a non-censored version. Censorship aside, the visuals were pretty okay. The first episode seemed to be the highlight of the whole entire show. Tokyo Ghoul wasn't able to replicate the animation quality though. The colors and visual design were extraordinary in the first episode. The colors were vibrant and full of life. The rest of the show isn't quite virtually polished, but by wading through what might look like a mediocre production, Tokyo Ghoul has been able to provide some provocative and fantastic layovers. Studio Perriot's touch is prominent throughout the series through its vibrant colors, overcast shadows, and wide spaces that serve to the intention of isolating our characters. It's unfortunate that some of the episodes spent some time looking like generic mush when we were all aware that the staff is highly capable of doing so much more. Sound was pretty okay for the most part. Sound direction in Tokyo Ghoul is a lot well put together. The series is adept at playing the right kind of music over a scene, and there's a lovely ambience to the mishappen feeding that happens quite often in the series. Sound effects and background music were decent, yet I will admit that the OP was perfect to set the tone for the anime in my opinion, but the ED didn't do all that much for me. Voice actors were pretty good overall. It took me a while to figure out that Kaneki and Inaho from Al No Zero were voiced by the same person. Now again, this was supposed to be a review, but also a rant. So I just want to go full-fledged and just say what my biggest gripe I have with this series as much as I can. So, of course, biggest gripes I have with this series would have to be the shipload of unexplained questions. Like seriously, every question has to deal with either Rize, Kaneki's circumstance, CCG's agent's history that I really wanted to know, Antique's member's history, Aoiguri's tree, among other things, are just never explained. I mean, there's so many questions, either with characters, the pacing, the unexplained questions, they're just never explained. I just feel like the animation studio of Harriot just decided to get the idea of adaptation from the manga to the anime, just wanted to get the viewers to make up their own theories. Like, these ideals should be left for mysterious endings and mysterious series, but not for Tokyo Ghoul. It should be very simplistic for the reviewer to understand what the plot is and what the questions that they're trying to give an answer to. Tokyo Ghoul had a promising concept. It could have explored it much more than it actually chose to. It left out an emotional background and a psychological development, making the story very shallow. The fight scenes added nothing to the setting, and the excellent animation quality in the beginning couldn't be replicated throughout the entire run. So, of course, for my story, characters, animation, sound, and personal enjoyment, I will have to say this, and I'm sorry to say it, but Tokyo Ghoul gets a 5.38 out of 10 for its mediocre performance for an anime. And I won't call it an anime gone wrong, but I will say, it is an anime that has a lot of flaws, and I don't think I can recommend this. You know, usually I end up doing my outro by saying comment down below on your thoughts and opinions of this anime, but I'm not really going to fully do that. I actually want to make a quick note just so I don't get any hateful comments on saying that I don't know this big information about Tokyo Ghoul. I do understand, there is a second season coming out. Some people have stated to me that I shouldn't make this review for the main purpose that Tokyo Ghoul Season 2 is just right around the corner, this fall season of 2015, but regardless, I don't think that really matters. I think I'm justifiable enough to give an actual review of a first season, since this is officially a first season. I think no anime deserves justification to just opt out of a first season review. So, if you guys do understand that, I just want to make that a quick note that I do understand there's a second season coming out. So, if you guys do understand this, please comment down below. If you guys differ from my review or my stance on how I feel with this anime, comment down below. I'm more than happy to give my viewpoints in a more simpler format, just so you guys understand more in the comment section below. So, anyways, my name is JC Green, and I'll see you guys next time on my next anime-related video. Peace, guys.